the big point that I wanted to make that you'll hear in a very long answer is that while tools can be helpful and are helpful, it's important to understand what got us to where we're at. And in this case, what got the steady personality to where they're at with being passive aggressive and anti-conflict. Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. EQ Gangsters, what's up? Great to see you guys. So I am currently in Houston doing some client engagements out here. And this is the introduction to episode 398 because it's a little bit different than normal because I used a Marco Polo, which is an app, communication app, like basically video texting. And I'm using that as the actual episode. And there's actually a part one and a part two. And you'll notice it. The part one is very long, and then the part two is a little bit shorter. And it is going to be about this is the question that led to this episode that you're about to listen to. So one of my friends who's a fellow coach, leadership coach, executive coach, asked me, Noble, how do you help a steady personality overcome and work through two things? Number one, their tendency towards being passive aggressive and their tendency toward avoiding conflict. That's the question that led to this big giant episode. Now, the other context is this particular coach has been a leader forever, 25 years he's been leading. In terms of coaching, he's relatively new in terms of coaching, but he's been leading for a very, very long time. He's a phenomenal dude. And he always asks very insightful questions. And the big point that I wanted to make that you'll hear in a very long answer is that while tools can be helpful and are helpful, it's important to understand what got us to where we're at. And in this case, what got the steady personality to where they're at with being passive aggressive and anti-conflict. Now, the other dynamic I want to share that I didn't go into in this particular episode is that, there's four main personality styles: the dominant, influencer, steady, and conscientious, for those y'all that are familiar with the DISC personality model. Now there's the Enneagram and there's all kinds of different personality assessments and that kind of thing, but the DISC model is fairly common. And again, so it's the dominant, influencer, steady, and conscientious are the four main personalities. Now, one thing that I mentioned in this episode is that I want to just kind of highlight each personality. If you look at it as a car, a vehicle, each car comes with a certain set of strengths and weaknesses. For example, a sports car has a certain set of strengths and a certain set of weaknesses. A sports car can go 200 miles an hour on a track, but it can't pull 25, a 10,000 ton RV, a 10,000 pound RV. But if you have a big giant pickup truck, 2,500 horsepower pickup truck, that is not going to be able to do 200 miles an hour on a track, but it can carry a bunch of dirt in the bed of the pickup truck. So it's not that sports cars are better than trucks, and trucks are better than sedans, and sedans are better than whatever other kind of vehicle there is, Jeeps. It's just that they're all different and they have different strengths and weaknesses that come kind of standard with each model. So the dominant personality, and again, there's exceptions to everything, but there is definitely a trend that dominant personalities, they have, certain set of strengths and some certain weaknesses that come standard as a dominant personality. The influencer personality has a certain set of strengths and a certain set of weaknesses that comes standard with that personality, so on and so forth. And again, there are exceptions to everything. There are definitely trends though. So for example, the dominant personality, they're very decisive. They're very confident oftentimes. Some of their weaknesses that can come standard in that package of personality, they can be control freaks and they can have a short temper. And I'm just giving you 2 of each. There are 20 of each, 20 strengths, 20 weaknesses, at least, 20 of each. The influencer, my personality, outgoing, optimistic, life of the party, disorganized, unfocused, poor follow through are some examples there. The steady personality, which is the super chill personalities, peaceful, they like harmony, they're non-threatening. Some of their, one of their weaknesses in this case is passive aggressive, is a trend that comes standard with many steady personalities. Also conscientious, the conscientious personality, the C personality. That is, their strengths, they love accuracy, they are hardcore attention to detail, they can spot the smallest speck of dust in a dust-free room. They will find that one piece of dust. They can also be, so one of their weaknesses, they can be perfectionist of themselves and others to an extreme, where it's unproductive and even hurtful or harmful for both themselves and others. And again, what affects all these strengths and weaknesses of the different personalities is emotional intelligence. And one thing I say a lot of times on the podcast is that, or in my coaching engagements, I say a lot, is that the greater your emotional intelligence, the more you can optimize and maximize your personality strengths and minimize your personality weaknesses or mitigate your personality weaknesses. If you have low EQ, you will amplify and your strengths can become weaknesses, your personality strengths can become weaknesses, and your personality weaknesses will be amplified or exacerbated with low EQ. So EQ and personality are related, brother and sister. They go hand in hand. So that's the relationship between personality and EQ. So that is the kind of the foundation or the context setting up this particular episode. Again, the question was, how can you help a steady personality overcome and work through passive aggressiveness? I use 3 of my real life emotional dysfunctions, at least 3 of my real life emotional dysfunctions, as the training tool and the example to answer this particular question that my friend and fellow executive coach Brian had for me. And so if you hear D personality, C personality, that just is for dominant, C is conscientious, I is influencer, and S is steady. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hey, brother, great to hear from you. Great question. So so big picture is each personality has our kind of standard issue strengths and weaknesses. And then what obviously affects those strengths and weaknesses is where our EQ is, our emotional health. And it's like physical fitness. So, and I'm using this as an analogy, some people can run like gazelles. Some people can, like me, give me a heavy rucksack and let me hump up a mountain. Boom. That's one of my strengths. But one of my weaknesses is running, being 6'1" and 250. And well, and I mean, even in my best shape, I've never run fast. Like when I was in the 82nd, a lieutenant in the 82nd, I think my fastest 2 mile time was, you know, uh, 12 minutes. Maybe. I may be lying. I think it was 12 minutes. That was like my fastest ever in my life. Like I was flying. But guys like you probably did it in 10 minutes or 9 minutes or something. My standard time was like 13, was like, that was probably like my average time. So, and then there's, jujitsu, there's certain, okay, as a big guy, there's certain strengths that I have. There's certain weaknesses that I have. I can do this set of moves, but I'm not going to try this set of moves. Being an older guy, I can do this set of moves, but I can't do this set of moves. So same thing with personality. So there's just some package standard issue strengths and weaknesses from a dominant personality, and influencer, steady, and conscientious. So definitely as a steady, one of their standard issue weaknesses or challenges is the passive aggressive. The hardcore aversion to conflict. So a couple of things here. So how I would address the conflict piece is, so, and really this is even the self-confidence thing too, and the passive aggressive thing is, do they have, do they have the self-awareness to understand a number of things about that particular issue? So for themselves. So I had really both of those issues. I had the passive aggressive, and the aversion to conflict were definitely, I had both of those issues. So for me, where did my passive aggressive come from? Where did my aversion to conflict come from? And so because here's the dynamic is, there's typically an origin story for each of our dysfunctions. There's typically, so, and I think I've told you this before, but just for example, when I was 6 years old, I believe, I was upstairs playing in my room and I hear this absolute pandemonium going on downstairs. Maybe I was 6 or 8 years old. And I hear just this yelling and screaming and craziness going on downstairs. And I'm like, man, what is going on? So I run downstairs, and my mom, she's 4'10", is hiding and crying behind the kitchen island. Crouched down on the floor, not quite turtle position, but just arms up, crying, screaming. My dad, 6'4", 285, steady personality, steady conscientious, always chill, is losing his mind in the middle of the kitchen, literally throwing pots and pans, yelling and screaming, breaking the cabinets, punching the cabinets, throwing chairs through windows. Like it was, for my little 6-year-old brain, 8-year-old brain, dude, it was intense. And because I had never seen my dad like say ass before, or like, I'd never seen him elevate his blood pressure before. And here he is in the middle going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And so so I get behind my mom behind the kitchen island, and now I'm crying and screaming, oh my gosh, what's going on? Stop. Just trying to get my dad to just chill out. And again, I don't know still what's going on. It's a lot of intensity. So, and I've never seen my dad like that because, again, he's steady. It's the whole thing. Don't get the quiet guy. Don't piss off the quiet guy. That's what happened. And so finally the dust settles after whatever period of time, and come to find out it was about their big giant fight. Blow up was about this small green piece of paper called money. And I'm like, so dude, literally in my little 6-year-old brain or 8-year-old brain, I made a decision that if this little thing called money, which I don't know what that is at 6 years old or 8 years old, if that little thing called money can turn my angel teddy bear of a dad into freaking Satan, right? I want nothing to do with it. So I literally made a vow in my little 6-year-old brain, 8-year-old brain, that money is a bad thing. And so, dude, until 10 years ago, so, I'm almost 50 now, so call it 40 years old, bro. I wouldn't order pizza. I wouldn't pay the pizza guy. My wife knew it was SOP, dude. The pizza guy shows up with a pizza, I'd go upstairs into my bedroom. I'd go inside the bathroom. I would not be around. And my wife's like, dude, what is your deal? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, you pay him. You pay him. You take care. Like, I don't want to deal with it. And so, and same thing with our finances, with our personal finances. Nope. I don't care. There just needs to be money available. That's all I need to know. That's all I'm going to be sweating. So don't ask me any questions. I don't want to talk about it. You just let me know as long as there's money available. And so again, finally one day she's like, dude, what, like, you help other people with their finances. You're a smart dude. Like what's going on? And so I'm like, man, what is my deal? What is going on? And went to counseling, it was a spiritual counselor, and, going through the whole counseling process. They have their whole process, and doing some, and there's a period of time where you do some reflection time and stuff, some very intentional reflection time. And I was asking God, like, God, what is my deal with money? And I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years at that point. And finally, what came up was that 6-year-old vow memory when my dad and mom were going nuts in the kitchen. God's like, he brought that up. And because I had made a vow as a little kid that money is evil, money is a bad thing, I wanted nothing to do with it. So much so that at 40, I would not pay the pizza guy, bro. And I didn't want to touch, look at, know anything about personal finances other than Kathy tell me that as long as we got more money than month. So most people have that type of thing. Now, it may not be that level of intensity, that dramatic, that traumatic, but it may be for their self-image. Now, here's the self-confidence thing, or my people-pleasing addiction. If a child does not get their emotions validated and affirmed by their parents, that it can turn into a number of different emotional dysfunctions. For me, as an influencer personality, it turned into a people-pleasing addiction. Because my parents, we we would yell and scream at each other at home, and then we'd stomp off into our respective corners of the room and come back like nothing happened. So I learned, okay, and so I learned how to stuff and avoid. I learned that this super intensity that I'm feeling inside doesn't matter because we're not going to talk about it. I didn't know how to handle or process, or I didn't know how to acknowledge, identify, process, and manage any of my intensity that was going on, these emotions that were going on. I had no idea what was going on. So again, the consistent lack of acknowledgement, validation, affirmation of my emotions as a kid led to me seeking out other people, anybody, to validate and affirm my feelings and emotions and my worth and identity. This is deep, deep stuff. So that was not an event. That was a consistent experience for me as a kid. So that one was not like, oh, that happened, like my dad in the kitchen and my mom, and they're doing the big fight because of money. That was a slow burn throughout my childhood that left a consistent coping mechanism for me. My food addiction, where did that come from? Again, that was not an event. I saw my dad as a kid, again, he's steady conscientious, so super chill, brilliant guy. He had, he was an emergency room physician, doctor. When he was in college, when he got super stressed out in med school, the way he took a break from med school was he got his pharmacy degree. So that was his break. He took a year or two off to get his pharmacy degree as his break, and then he finished off with, finished the last couple years of his med school. So brilliant dude. And so as long as I can remember, the way he would deal with his stress was, I just saw him, when he got home from his shift, he would study for 2 or 3 hours. So whether he got back from a 12-hour shift, 24-hour shift, 48-hour shift, 72-hour shift, however long his shift was, he'd come back in the house. He'd come in the house and grab something to start grazing on, and then he would sit down and study for another 1 or 2 hours, his medical stuff, his Bible reading, And through the 2 or 3 hours of Bible reading and medical manuals and medical research and stuff like that, to staying up to speed on that, he'd be always eating throughout the whole night. He'd be always eating. And again, as a kid, I had no idea that was a coping mechanism for my dad and how he dealt with stress. I just watched the behavior. So boom, I start getting older. Next thing you know, now what kept me going was, thank God, I was super active, athletic, So my active and athleticness, or whatever that goes, kept me at a functional level size so that I could be competitive in basketball and football and all that stuff to a degree. I was not some ninja athlete or anything, but so there's my food addiction, watching my dad. So I'm trying to give you some examples. Some are actual events, Brian, and some are slow burn things that we either observe or happen to us or don't happen to us, which my people-pleasing addiction came from what's called a childhood emotional neglect, which is a real thing. It's a real psychological thing, which is, it's not what happens to you, because a lot of our trauma dysfunction comes from what happened to us. my dad and mom having the big giant fight, that they blew up, and and I'm experiencing this and watching this real time. That's what happened to me. The not getting my emotions validated or affirmed as a kid, that's what didn't happen to me. That is childhood emotional neglect. So it's not what happened to you, it's what didn't happen to you but should have happened to you. Your parents not showing up for a basketball game, you're, not getting affirmed, for making a good decision as a kid, or, not getting a hug or love at your birthday party, or your parents never telling you that they loved you, or right, so anyway, that's childhood emotional neglect. Anyway, so some of these deeper rooted things that can come from an event, or from a slow burn, or from what didn't happen, right? What did happen, slow burn, what didn't happen, slow burn. And until there is an understanding or awareness or connecting those dots, I have found any attempt to fix those areas temporary or ineffective at best. No, boy, you should just eat better. You should just run more, do more PT. You should just, right, so which is a very D approach. Very D approach is, well, stop eating junk food, dude. Stop getting 3 helpings of food and just get 2 helpings or get 1 helping. Oh, that was something else. That was something else about the food. From the time I remember, dude, my mom would tell me, this is the speech, you have to finish anything on your plate. If you get it, you eat it. Literally, here's why. There are starving people in Africa, Noble, and starving children in Africa are going to die and starve if you do not finish your plate of food here. My little 3-year-old brain, 5-year-old brain, like, crap, well, I don't want to be responsible for killing some kid in Africa because I don't finish my plate. So again, the emotional connection to behavior, to a physical behavior, crap. Dude, you want to talk about programming the brain, right? And brainwashing. I was ingrained that dude, if you order it, if you buy it, if it is in front of you for whatever reason, that plate better be clean because of starving children in Africa. And dude, I kept that, and then that in conjunction with my watching my dad and how he dealt with stress led to my, and then add on top, again, I had no idea how to identify, acknowledge, process, or manage my own emotions. And now you've got a dude who's a food addict, right? So, but I had to become aware of those little different areas, which takes time, intention, reflection, somebody to help ask me questions, because for a lot of this stuff, dude, so here's another dynamic, Brian, is that not being a C, and this is going to sound weird to you probably, but not being a C, so one of a C's standard issue items is thinking and reflecting. That comes standard package in the C model of a person. Thinking and reflecting, dude, you guys do like breathing. That's not an I, dude. That is not an I. That does not come standard issue as an I. And because I had no tools, I had no language, I had no resources to think or to process my emotions, I've also always had a monster aversion to thinking and reflecting about any emotions. So it was a double-edged sword. Hey, Noble, do some reflection on emotions. Bro, my whole system would immediately start fighting against you because that's Danger Will Robinson. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You want me to reflect and think? I have no tools to think and reflect. I don't know how to think and reflect. I've never thought and reflected before. And if I do think and reflect, it's going to lead me down the dark tunnels and pathways of my brain and heart that are going to introduce me to these monsters, these scary Friday the 13th Halloween monsters called feelings and emotions. And I don't know I got no weapons, bro, to handle that stuff. So guess what? I'm not doing any thinking and reflecting. Literally, Brian, I'm telling you, bro, Big Papi was screwed up. So literally, I never wanted to be alone with myself. I would always I'm watching UFC fights right now, reruns and stuff. I would always have background music playing. I would always have background TV playing because I never wanted to be alone with myself. I was terrified. So imagine helping a guy like me with all these different areas. So I'm giving you that massive backstory, Brian, to give you the mindset and anybody that would, I'd go to, hey, can you give me some help on that? I need better confidence. Oh, self-sabotage. It's a whole, dude, I'm giving you all my junk in my trunk. But again, I want you to understand how I had to get through that. So self-sabotage was another one. Because of my money issue, that when I was 6 years old, and imagine this issue as an entrepreneur, the more successful we would become, the more I would self-sabotage because I was unworthy. I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve to be successful. I didn't deserve, if success had anything to do with money, well, I can't have more money because, that turned my dad into Satan, and my dad was an angel teddy bear. So this thing called money, right, that little vow that I had no idea I made when I was 6 years old, was driving my adult decisions. Whoa, anything that leads to making more money, dude, you need to stay away from, bro. Stay away. Oh, you're starting to make more money as an entrepreneur? Ooh, whoa, nope, can't do that, dude. You gotta, again, Danger Will Robinson, right? So then all these books, right? You read all the books, you go to these seminars, these conferences. You just need to have a better self-image. You need to have more self-confidence. You just need to get in shape. You just need to stop eating sugar. You just need to, right, fill in and that's all dominant. That's the dominant approach to anything. Is just fix it. Stop being an idiot and just fix it. Well, dude, if I freaking knew how to do that, I would do it, but I don't. So your advice is completely worthless to me because I didn't realize all these underlying deep water emotional decisions that that happened to me over the course of my childhood that had led to all these survival mechanisms, these coping mechanisms that were not healthy. So to tell me to just lose weight, just work out more, stop eating, dude, that was all deep emotional things that were going on under the surface. So to tell somebody to just get over it, or there's deep stuff, dude, in most of us for why we do what we do, but we don't even know why we do all that stuff. I didn't know any of that stuff, dude, when I first started down this whole EQ journey. I didn't know any of it. And so again, I'm just giving you this coaching, again, is for me why this emotional stuff is so important. Regular coaching would just give you some Band-Aids. Hey, take this Band-Aid for low self-confidence. Take this Band-Aid to stop being passive-aggressive. Take this Band-Aid to stop avoiding conflict. And again, for Noble, none of that stuff worked, dude. But the Band-Aid, That's why I just am not like you've got to include, in my opinion, in my anecdotal opinion, you've got to include the emotional backstory, or your coaching is going to be temporary and minimally effective at best, right? They may see, you give them the tool, right? You give them the tool. Hey, just use this can to drink more fluids. Oh, cool. Okay, great. Thanks, man. I'm going to use this tool, this can. And that's going to last for all of 3 days. For me, it was about my window of tools and behavior change was 3 days was the quickest, and the earliest, and the longest change would be maybe a week. That was the only I never got past a week of behavior change in all my years of business and all that kind of stuff, because of all that other back stuff that was affecting all those other areas. So I say all of that, Brian, to help you again understand, for me and my emotional growth journey, my coach, my therapist, counselor had to do some digging around those different areas. Hey, can you help me just better but he did it, he did it safely. He did it non-threatening. He did it non-judgmental. He did it from a place of curiosity and love. Hey, no, well, okay, so for example, the conflict avoidance. What I would want to understand is, what are all the beliefs and emotions surrounding conflict? Because again, for me, for Noble, I only had a negative file of emotions and thoughts around conflict, and I wasn't aware of either one of those that were affecting my behavior, of why I was a massive conflict avoider. I just knew, dude, you mentioned the C word. I'm like, I'm out, bro. I'm out. So help them understand, which again, they may not have the awareness. They may not know where that stuff is coming from, but that's what I would want to know. What do they, when I mention the word conflict, Brian, what comes up for you? What emotions come up for you? What beliefs come up for you? What stories, what's the narrative in your brain surrounding conflict? And I guarantee you, anyone who is a conflict avoider has a negative file, a negative mental file, and a negative emotional file around conflict. So, and then you throw in a low EQ on top of those other areas, that's all going to affect conflict avoidance. And literally, Brian, just acknowledging the emotional origin story behind a particular behavior or dysfunction is half of the healing journey. Not even joking. Just realizing, oh, man, are you telling me the reason I want nothing to do with money and my self-sabotage is because when I was 6 years old, I made a vow as a little kid that money is evil? Dude, that was maybe 60%, 70% of the healing journey, is just making that connection. Now, because again, for the brain is seeking meaning and understanding for everything. And if it can't figure out, man, why is one of my survival mechanisms running from this thing called money in all your behavior patterns? Anything attached to money is anything that leads me to more money is bad. If the brain can't figure out why, it's going to get stuck in a loop. And anything you do, just do the envelope method. Just do, stop spending so much. It's none of that matters, dude. It's all going to be temporary. Okay. Similarly, the passive aggressiveness. Okay. Number one, as a steady, what is that? Define for me, help me understand what does passive aggressive, what does that mean to you? Number one. Number two, how does that show up in your life? Can you build my own understanding of what does passive aggressive look like in your life? How does it show up? When does it show up? Why does it show up? Where did it come from? Where did you start to realize or recognize the passive aggressiveness? What are the benefits? Because again, our brains are master survival machines. So how does being passive aggressive, how does it keep you safe? Because clearly that's part of the thing. So how is it serving you? And so another thing that's helpful to realize, Brian, is a lot of our coping mechanisms and survival mechanisms are for that purpose, to protect us at 6 years old and 7 years old and 8 years old. And what happens is when we make and come up with that coping mechanism or survival mechanism at 6, 7, 8 years old, the majority of people never go back and do a behavior audit of all our survival and coping mechanisms to realize that, okay, well, that was just to protect me when I was 6 years old. The brain, once it starts the survival mechanism, it does not change them around. It like, if this works to keep me safe in whatever area of my life, I am going to use this this is my go-to for my brain. This is what my brain's going to go to because this means safety for me. This means comfort. This means safety and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And until you go back and like, hey, what, do you really still need this? Like, maybe I can use something else for this thing. The brain does not do that naturally. So as a coach, you have to, okay, let's look at this. Okay, so this served you. Oh, you started doing this when you were 6 because, and you're still doing it. Do you still need this? Or like, tell me about this. What does this mean to you? What does this do for you? How does this serve you? Tell me, what color is it? What shape is it? What does it look like? What does it smell like? You're helping them. All these questions are helping them develop their awareness of this survival tool that they created when they were 3 years old, 5 years old, 12 years old, 16 years old. And the more you can help them identify and acknowledge this thing, this coping mechanism, this survival mechanism, then they will start to better understand and process and manage this tool. Okay, so tell me all about this, right? As the coach, okay, well, again, how's it helping you? How's it serving you? And help them self-realize, oh, well, maybe I can use a different thing. Maybe I can use a cup or a mug or a gallon jug or a water bottle. Or maybe I don't need a thing at all based on where this came from. Maybe I just don't need one. And you help them walk through all that stuff and come to the realization, oh man, okay, well, I thought I needed this green and yellow lemon lime twist can. Oh, I guess maybe I don't need this anymore. Or maybe I can use, again, a different thing. And that is where the change and the transformation happens over time. When you help them walk that dog. But for some people, that's why I'm such a believer in ongoing coaching, not one and done. Because, dude, you know how long it took me to uncover all that stuff that I just rattled off to you in this long ass polo? Dude, it took years, bro, for some of this stuff. Years so I did, I think, 2 years of therapy, counseling, therapy, whatever it's called. And we would meet once every 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for like a 1 to 2 years. I think maybe a year and a half, call it, for easy math. Because I was 40 years old and had no reflection abilities. I was not even I didn't even know how to tie my white belt in reflection and thinking. So imagine trying to grow your EQ with an inability to think and reflect to a C, right? To a conscientious, that's like, dude, what? Like, how is that even possible? Exactly. That's why I'm so passionate about this stuff, dude, because this stuff has been life-changing for me, bro. God has changed my life. So anyway, I know that's super long, dude. Hopefully that gives you some context with how to approach some of this stuff. And I will tell you, Brian, it's less about providing tools and more about providing curiosity, finding these areas in someone's life about self-sabotage or about passive aggressiveness or about conflict avoidance. And just start, once you're like, okay, what does conflict look like to you? Oh, well, okay, and how does that show up? What does that behavior look like? Well, it's this long, thin plastic thing. Okay, well, tell me about it. Oh, well, it's got this circle in the middle with another circle inside that circle. And then there's a whole bunch of little buttons in there. Oh, tell me about the buttons. What do the buttons look like? Oh, they're right. And the more you help their brain describe this thing in their own brain for themselves, now they can start to understand, oh, if I push this back button, oh, that'll change the screen to go to the back, the previous tab or the previous window. And if you hit this minus button, the sound goes down. And if you hit the plus button, the sound goes up. And if you hit this minus button, the image changes to a different channel, right? So that's where the transformation happens. It's less about Noble and Brian and Brittany and Rob and Eric and Dan need to come up with these specific tools to this is how you push these buttons. Well, again, if they don't even know that this is here, it's not, none of the tools matter unless you help them come to the understanding of that particular behavior pattern. So anyway, dude, I again apologize for the hour-long polos. Hopefully it helps your mindset in how you approach these steadies with their passive aggressiveness and their conflict avoidance. Hey, brother, great to hear from you. So, here's another great point that you kind of brought out is it's not going to happen typically in one session. And quite frankly, it may not happen in 6 sessions. And it is okay to give them a tool or 2 or 3 that they can use to further dig deeper on their own after the 6 sessions are up. So that is totally fine. They just need to understand that that if you've got the right tool and it's applied correctly, that tool is for digging deeply, not to scratch the surface, right? You don't get a backhoe to dig a 1-inch deep hole, so, hey, I don't remember the guy's name, Seth or whatever his name is, here's a backhoe for you. And again, the purpose is so that you can, on your own, do some deeper digging to help you discover maybe some of the origin stories that may be attached to some of these different behaviors that you've been applying. So yeah, great, excellent point. It's not going to happen in a session. And here's another nuance, Brian, is that I've got, let's see, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 2 of the 100 or so leaders that I've been coaching there's probably more than that, maybe let's say 5 who have been unwilling to go deep. So I will bust out the backhoe, and they're like, whoa, hey, no, let's I feel comfortable. Just give me a Band-Aid. And obviously it's not that, using that analogy in that discussion, but I can tell by their nonverbals and by some of their verbals that they are not at a place or space in their life or a phase in their life where they are ready, willing, or able to jump in that cockpit of the stinking backhoe excavator and start going to work. So so then I just let them know, hey, totally fine, no sweat. I just want to let you know that I will give you some tools in the interim that can be Band-Aids, and still, you can still build some muscle mass, some emotional muscle mass. Just know that to really get a lot of traction in this particular area, at some point, you're going to have to bust out this excavator to do some of the deeper digging. But absolutely, in the meantime, here's a spoon, here's a fork, here's a garden spade, here's a shovel, so here's some other tools that can be used that maybe won't be as deep of a dig, but again, can at least get you doing some PT, some emotional PT. So that's another kind of angle or dynamic to keep in mind as well. Because again, for most people, I say for most people, I'll tell you, for me, and I'm probably pretty close to worst case scenario. Maybe not worst case scenario. So scale from 1 to 10, I probably wasn't a 10, but I was probably an 8 or a 9 in terms of my own personal hesitancy to start digging. With a fork, a spoon, a garden spade, a shovel, a backhoe, an excavator, like I wanted nothing to do with it. So I was a pretty extreme example because, again, I was terrified. So, you may run into some of those people and leaders that you coach that are like, bro, dude, I'm not doing any digging. I've got one right now who is fairly emotionally needy, and he knows it, but he's not ready yet to do the deeper digging to fix and heal and grow from that emotional neediness. And so in the meantime, he knows and I know, and he knows that I know, and I know that he knows that I know, that he's going to continue to exhibit emotionally needy behaviors until he heals and works on and does that necessary work to become less emotionally needy and to become more emotionally healthy and fit, which leads to a more emotional resilience, increase of emotional bandwidth, increase of emotional capacity, increase the leadership agility, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you know, as a coach, in my opinion, a good coach is someone who meets them where they're at and challenges them with love, with grace, with space, with curiosity. And that coach knows what that line is to make sure that you don't injure that athlete. Obviously, you don't want to push them so hard they injure themselves. You don't want to make the environment unsafe, but you do want to encourage that stretching so that growth can take place. But again, it takes EQ on the coach's part, to facilitate where that line is to stretch that leader so that they don't pull an emotional muscle, or they don't say, screw you, I'm not coming back. But they're like, man, thank you. That was exactly what I needed to get me another inch, another inch, another inch, another inch. So great thoughts and discussion, brother. So thankful for you, man. And also, you brought up another great point about the DC personalities, right? The dominant, conscientious personality, the conscientious, dominant personality. It absolutely is much faster to say, dude, lose weight, run faster, jump higher, be more productive, right? It's so much faster to say those words. But if there's any type of analysis, post-analysis of the effectiveness of that type of approach, again, if there's deeper emotional issues going on, that approach, while maybe faster, is going to, again, be temporary or ineffective at best, like it was for me. That stuff never worked for me, ever, because I had this massive amount of emotional dysfunction that was beneath and driving all of my unhealthy coping mechanisms, survival mechanisms that I had developed when I was a kid. So, anyway, appreciate you, brother.